Hello, all. My name is Kathleen Quinn. I'm a civics and democracy reporter here at the Modesto Bee, and I'll be our moderator this evening. Our program tonight will cover a wide range of issues about summer safety for kids in the greater Modesto area. Topics will include outdoor safety, water safety, pedestrian safety, and vehicle safety. We'll start off with our first esteemed panelist, Rena Bryant. Rena Bryant has been a registered nurse for 20 years, working in an emergency department for the past 12 years as an injury prevention coordinator, Safe Kids Stanislaus coordinator for trauma services at Doctors Medical Center. She is a mother of 4 children and a huge advocate for childhood safety. Our next guest is Dr. Philip Bauman. Dr. Bauman completed medical school at the University of California, Davis, and a pediatric residency program for the National Children's Hospital in Columbus, Ohio. Following training, he returned home to Modesto, where he grew up, and he's been practicing as a pediatrician since 2002. He enjoys caring for kids of all ages and has 2 grown children of his own. And finally, we have Fire Captain Joseph Spanny. Joseph Spanny has 20 years of experience in the fire service and has been with the Modesto Fire Department for the past 4 years. He is currently assigned to Station 27 in Oakdale and manages the Modesto Fire Department smoke detector and life jacket programs in one of the department's he's one of the department's public information officers. All are incredibly talented members of the Modesto community. We're lucky to have them and their expertise here tonight. So let's start with outdoor safety. In 1 week, in July last year, we had 61 people treated for heat-related illnesses. What are some ways that we can prevent heat stroke for kids this summer, and some symptoms we should look out for? Let's start with you, Dr. Bauman.
Yeah, thanks. That's certainly unfortunate when kids end up with heat-related injuries, whether that be just heat exhaustion or the more terrible heat stroke. It's definitely important to be paying attention to what the heat index is outside. Of course, the hottest parts of the day tend to be around 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. or so for things. Although in this area, it seems like it's 24/7 in this county. So being mindful of what the temperature is outside, and then making sure you've got some shade. And if you're in the heat in long periods, hydration becomes a huge issue, right? So drinking plenty of water, that is your best bet to stay hydrated, is drinking water. So there are a lot of different beverages out there, and some people think just drinking a soda is good enough for them. That is a terrible choice for hydration. So water is important. And in some, with schools and sports, sometimes they'll do pre and post practice weights just to make sure those kids are staying hydrated. That we would expect parents to be weighing their kids before and after. So we will have to be making sure that they are not looking too terribly flushed.
Thank you so much. I wanted to add, if Nurse Rena, do you have any follow-ups on this regarding car safety?
Just speaking of the heat in our county and in our state, we get pretty tremendous heats. And just to remind caregivers that we're not leaving our children in the car ever, 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 not even just for a moment. Sometimes caregivers put their children in the car, turn off the car, and they're like, oh, I just have to go grab my XYZ that's in the car. And they think they're going to be gone for 30 seconds. And then we know as caregivers and parents, we have 1,000 things going on. And next thing you know, you're grabbing your cell phone and you got a text message, and then I'm just going to change the laundry real quick. And unfortunately, vehicles heat up really quickly. In 10 minutes, a car can heat up like 19 degrees, and that can be really detrimental to a child's health and safety. So just remembering, don't leave kids in cars. And then you think that people or bad parents who are leaving their children in cars on purpose, but most of the time, statistically wise, the children that are being left in cars are the ones that are forgotten. So a lot of times it's caregivers that are out of routine. So maybe it's the dad who, doesn't usually drop them off at daycare. I always sell myself out on this one when I tell parents that it happens to professionals a lot of the time. And so my My kid's dad usually took the kids to school. I went to work very early, and so it was summertime, and so he was gone to a golf tournament. And so he was gone. So I dropped my oldest off at the Boys and Girls Club, and then I went down the street to go to the hospital and just kind of got on work mode and thinking of all the things that I had to do. And I went by the hospital, and I was just about to like go into the hospital, and I heard my daughter behind me, and I was like, oh gosh, like that's how quickly it happens. And unfortunately, you hear a lot of stories if you follow the social media of it's just grandparents who out of routine, that's not usually their job, a caregiver, that's not their job, daycare workers that, forgot one of the kids. So just setting yourself some reminders that if you have a child in the car, put your cell phone in the back seat, which is an amazing idea anyways. Put your purse in the back seat so you have to reach for those things before you get out of the car. Putting a teddy bear potentially in the front seat with you. So you look at that and you're like, oh, that's right, I have the kids with me. There's all kinds of really great technology that is out there as well to remind caregivers that it connects to your car and to your phone, that if you get so far away from your vehicle and you haven't opened the back seat, that will go off. And there's also even car seats now where the retainer clip at the chest, if it hasn't been taken off by the time you leave your car, it'll notify you on your cell phone. So there's lots of little things to remember. Also, just another reminder is don't let your kids play with the fobs of your vehicles, because they're playing with them. They don't realize what's happening. They get inside the vehicles, and a lot of times they don't know how to get out. So remember, if your child is missing or you can't find them around the house, if you have a pool, number one, get to the pool first. And then number two, go check your vehicles to ensure that the child hasn't got themselves locked in there. And then just the third component of that is that if you're walking around in shopping centers or parking lots and you notice that there is a child that is inside of a vehicle, it's on a hot day, you look inside there. Number one, activate EMS so that they can get there right away. If it's by a store, send somebody inside to go and try and get the caregiver. And then if you find that the child is really in distress or potentially unconscious, you need to get them out of there as soon as possible. And so that means breaking a window away from the child to unlock the doors, get the child out, start cooling them until EMS can arrive and they can start providing first aid to them. So yeah, heat is upon us. And unfortunately, we lose a lot of kiddos. And already across America, we've lost 3 kiddos this year in 2025. But it's usually in the high 30s of the children that are left unintentionally inside of vehicles.
Thank you so much for providing that perspective. Captain Spanny, is there anything else you wanted to throw in here?
Echoing what Dr. Bauman and Rena spoke about, it doesn't take much in terms of heat for something like this to happen. Anything over 80 degrees with a closed car inside of a parking lot, the asphalt's going to radiate that heat, increase the temperature inside the vehicle very quickly, and make it to where the children can go into distress a lot quicker than people realize. Anytime there's something like that, and the vehicle is locked, child trapped inside, and we can't get that person out, call 911 early. It's easy for us to turn around and go back to our fire stations, and it makes it to where we can start care early and prevent a worse situation by being there early to unlock and get that person out of the vehicle.
Thank you so much for that perspective. And to kind of continue on with you, Captain Spanny, the Sheriff's Office said that there were 10 fatal drownings in the past year just within Stanislaus County waterways. As a first responder, what are some things to keep in mind with kids and water this summer?
Rita talked a little bit about it already, but the biggest thing is making sure that we're paying attention to our kids, and they're always under supervision. Having what's called a water watcher is extremely important. What that does is it keeps a designated adult to always be watching over the children, looking for any signs of distress and making sure that help is delivered, whether it's going out and getting that person out of the water or calling 911 immediately. We have a reflex time. That means it takes us time to actually get into our fire engines, get on the road, battle traffic, and show up at the emergency scene. So the quicker that we can be called, the better it is, the better the outcome is going to be. Making sure also that we have our life jackets in place and they're properly fitted for the child. In our Modesto Fire Department system, we have contracts of service with Turlock Fire and Stanislaus Consolidated Fire. We have life jackets throughout our fire department system that are available for use. And we have everything from child all the way up to adult for use for anybody that can need them. And Anytime that there's some need, please call our fire stations or visit our Facebook or our webpage, where we can find all of the addresses where you can get those life jackets.
Thank you so much. I know that oftentimes with drownings, people tend to think of riverways and pools. Are there any other places where people should be concerned that may be non-traditional? And this one is for Nurse Bryant.
Yeah, definitely. So statistically wise, if you have a child who's going to be drowning, who's like 0 to 1 years old, that's generally in the home. And so sometimes those are places that we don't think of, such as children getting into a tub unsupervised or not supervised in the bathroom while they're in the tub, or not putting the toilet seat down or closing the doors in the bathroom, and the children who are so head heavy falling into the toilets and drowning there. Some people don't have big pools in their backyards, and so sometimes they have just little small wading pools. And so it's really important that after you're done using those, number one, even though it's a wading pool with only a couple inches of water, that you're consistently supervising the children at all time. When you're done with that, I know it's not conserving water by any means, but please dump that out, or at least put it in a locked area that the kids can't get in there. So that's 0 to 1. And then when you have the younger kids, generally the younger kids are drowning in the home pools or pools around the area. So that's 0 to 4. Those statistically, that's what that looks like. So just some gentle reminders that if you have a pool, that you want to have a fence all the way around it, and it has to be at least 4 feet tall, and that you have a gate that self-closes on its own, and it self-latches and it locks so that the kids can't get in there. The other things on top of that, you can do other barriers such as your doors that make noise when somebody goes outside. And then again, being aware of where the children are at all times. Some other safety things are no CPR, because if worst case scenario happens, it's really important that first responders have initiated CPR while we're waiting for EMS to arrive. And then getting your kids in swimming lessons as soon as you can. And we have a lot of recreation departments around the county that do provide swimming lessons, and they're anywhere from $40 to just over $50 for about 10 lessons. And then they do have scholarships available if you call each one of those different cities and find out what they have if you are on low income status. So they do have that. As kids get older, that's generally when we start to see people drowning in big bodies of water, the reservoirs, the canals, the rivers. That's when older kids drown. And statistically, unfortunately, boys or men are 4 times more likely to drown than girls, because they do have that risk-taking behavior at those ages. So it's just really all the things I echo that Captain Spanny said about that. And then also remembering that if you are attempting to rescue people, please remember that you reach for them with like a stick or a branch or a noodle. You want to reach for them, throw something to them so they can grab it and then kick themselves way in. But don't go, because unfortunately what you see is that people go with really great intentions. They're going to go save somebody, and then they can very easily, with the adrenaline of the person drowning, can very easily drown them as well. So now you not only have 1 victim, but you have 2 or potentially more victims, especially people are getting into the very, very cold waters of our reservoirs, or the very cold waters or rushing waters of our rivers and canals as well. So, yeah.
Thank you. And Dr. Bauman, do you have anything that you would like to add to this, something that you see as a doctor?
Well, I think much of it's been said, but prevention is the number one. So when we talked about, the fences and alarms and things like that, a lot of people assume that, well, even if you're outside with the kids, that if someone falls in the pool, they're going to hear it. They're going to make a big splash, or they're going to start thrashing about in the water. But unfortunately, especially with small kids, they'll approach the side of that water and they'll slip in nearly silently. And so you won't know or won't hear it. So generally, if there's no fence and things like that, we recommend or even if you're in the pool with a child, a small child, you want to be kind of within like arm's reach. As Captain mentioned, just having a designated person is a great way to kind of help prevent as well. So,
thank you. And keeping with you, Dr. Bauman, I know that during the summer, kids love to bicycle and do wheeled sports, scooters, rollerblades, etc. And, sometimes wearing a helmet isn't super cool. Can you give a doctor's perspective on why it's important to always wear a helmet?
Yeah, so definitely it's one of the best ways to prevent brain injuries or traumatic brain injuries. I mean, in general, I think the rule should be no helmet, no riding, and that can be a challenge for parents to kind of convince their kids. But the other thing is that adults should be an example too. So adults are out there riding their bike and no helmet. They kind of continue to show the kids that maybe, oh, that's not very cool, or I want to be an adult long before I'm ready. Adults should wear helmets too. But definitely we've seen, and probably everybody on here has seen some traumatic events where kids are not wearing their helmets. And it definitely can save a life. So fortunately, kids think they're invincible. So sometimes as the caregivers and the parents, we just kind of have to make that rule. If you're not wearing a helmet, you can't get on the bike.
And Captain Spanny, do you have any thoughts to add to that?
Yeah, it's a hard and fast rule for my two girls. I've got two that are under 10 years old. They don't ride their scooter. They don't ride their bike without having the helmets on. We see it out on our emergency scenes where someone has simply fallen off a bicycle and they hit their head the wrong way on something like a curb and lose consciousness. Depending on where we are within the city or how close we are to hospitals, we have to land a helicopter because they've met the criteria for that. And it's something that can quickly escalate. And the brain injuries are something that can have lifelong effects.
Thank you. And Nurse Bryant, I want to get your thoughts on this, and then I want to stick with you for a second about water follow-up. So if you have anything to add on this, and then we'll move on to that.
Yeah, absolutely. So great information from both of the guys on here. And just to remind parents that the helmets are only going to work, number one, as they said, if they wear it. It's not helpful if you're dangling it from the handlebars of your scooter or of your bicycle. That doesn't work. It also doesn't work if you don't clasp it. That's also a thing. And then we have what's called the 2-2-2 rule. So to fit the helmet properly, it's not difficult, but it's 2 fingers above your eyebrow, and that's where the helmet should fit. So when you look up, you should be able to see the top of your helmet. If it's all the way back here, if you fall forward, you're going to smack the front of your head. So 2 fingers, and that's where the top of the helmet is. Then we always teach the kids and caregivers, you make like a peace sign with the 2. And so then the strap goes around the ear, and the little buckle should go right where the earlobe is. And it should be nice and tight there. And that's what holds it in place. And then you'd make another 2 here, and it's 2 fingers underneath the chin. And that's how tight it is. It shouldn't be so tight that you're choking the child, but it should be tight enough that they open their mouth very wide, that they can feel the top of the helmet. Also, lots of helmets have like a little kind of corkscrew on the back of it there that it tightens up the helmet so that it fits them properly. So that's really the thing that I would add. Also, just reminding everybody that it is California law. If a child is under the age of 18, it's mandatory that they wear their helmet on anything with wheels. So that's skateboards and scooters and, rollerblades, all of those things. It is law. So number one, safety is the most important thing. Number 2, though it's very rare that you get a ticket for not using a helmet, it is technically the law. And I love what Dr. Bauman said, is that we wear helmets for kids to protect their heads because that helps them walk and run and learn and, do all the fun things that they do. But the joke is, I always ask them, do your parents have brains that we want to protect? And they're like, oh, well, yeah, I guess so. Yeah, of course. And so I love that us as caregivers, that we need to be that really good influence with them. Just like if we don't wear our seatbelts inside of a vehicle, your children are very likely not to wear their seatbelts if you're not mandating it. So if you just wear a helmet, it's just what we do. And then it protects your head as an adult as well, and just makes that really good role modeling behavior for them, where it just feels weird if you're not wearing your helmet when you're on something with wheels. So yeah, so that's what I have to say about that.
Thank you. Yes, that was a lot of really good information. I wanted to follow up with you on water watchers and specifically if there should be any warnings on floaties.
Yeah, so with the water watchers, Captain Spanny mentioned it, and Dr. Bauman mentioned it, but just to kind of reinforce and put it in I feel like this is a really realistic perspective when we're talking to caregivers, is that we are all at a barbecue. And so everybody's watching the kids. But that's not true, because I just took a child to the bathroom. Somebody else is barbecuing. Somebody else went to go get sodas, and somebody else is breaking up a squabble between the kids. And so truly nobody's really watching the kids. And as we discussed, drowning is silent. There are so many drownings that happen when there are lots of people around and they just didn't notice them go underneath the floaty, or they didn't notice them in the shallow end or the section of the pool that didn't have good visibility. So by designing and designating somebody who's a water watcher, so we always talk about, we have lanyards with like a little card that says water watcher. So I'm going to wear that, or like a crazy sombrero, so people know, don't bug me. Like, it is my job for 15 minutes. I'm watching those kids. I'm not going to the bathroom with kids. I'm not getting food. I'm just watching the kids. And then after my 15 minutes, I'm going to take that off and I'm going to give it to somebody else. And now they are completely designated, and I can go to that barbecue and have confidence that the kids are taken care of. So other than that, and sharing the responsibilities as caregivers, consider hiring a lifeguard. I mean, hiring a lifeguard for the amount of dollars that it would be for your barbecue is a whole lot better than having a tragic incident that happened at your barbecue. The second question that you asked me about the floaty, please make sure that whatever you're putting on your child for life jackets is U.S. Coast Guard approved. And so when we're talking about those little water wings that are blow-ups and they put on the arms, those are not approved because they can easily slip off of the child, and you thought that they were safe because they were floating around, and that's just not the case. Some of those puddle jumpers, some of them are U.S. Coast Guard approved, but some of them are not. So please make sure you read the labels. And when you are choosing a life jacket for the child, how you choose which one fits the child is not based on height. It's completely based on weight. So you need to know that the child's weight. You read on the label, say U.S. Coast Guard approved. It'll tell you the weight of the child. And then when you clip it, it has to be clipped here, and then underneath the crotch area if it's an infant. And it should feel super tight. It should feel like a big hug. Because when you grab the top of the life jacket, it should not come anywhere near the ears of the child. Because if it's too big, it's going to go up, and then their face is going to be underneath the life jacket, and they can easily slip out of it. So it's also very important that it's tight and that you have a good fit based on the weight of the child.
Thank you so much for that. I think I know who's the expert on this one, but I'm always happy to be surprised. I'm going to start with Captain Spanny on this one. Can you tell us a little bit more about fireworks safety?
So 4th of July is just around the corner. It's going to be quicker than people imagine. Fireworks have already started going off in a lot of neighborhoods. Making sure that we keep our kids safe with these fireworks is extremely important. Even small fireworks like sparklers can be extremely dangerous. Making sure that we're watching these kids, and if they're in a position where we know that they don't quite have the muscle control to keep the fireworks in a safe direction like sparklers, making sure that we're 100% holding that firework with the child. You'll see a lot of burn injuries right now and through the 4th of July weekend. They're easily preventable just with supervision and making sure to really enforce with our kids that it's dangerous. They can become burned very easily, and if they're modified, they can cause explosions, and consequences could be losing a body part because of that. So we want to make sure that that's something that's hammered home with our children, and safety is the number one priority with them.
Thank you. And I'm going to pitch it to Dr. Bauman if you have anything to add on that.
Again, it's going to be that supervision, as Captain mentioned. Is there a specific age at which a kid can handle a sparkler? I would probably not let a kid hold a sparkler until they're kindergarten age if your parent's not holding it with them. And even at that age, it just depends on that kid's disposition. Everybody knows you got kids who will just run into other people with a sparkler, and you've got some kids who will sit quietly and just observe and watch it. So you got to take that kid's disposition into account as well. But definitely fireworks, we have them going off in our neighborhood even before 4th of July at times, and they can be quite dangerous, some of them that they're using. So you want to keep kids far away from those.
And keeping with you, Dr. Bauman, if you could tell us a little bit about the importance of sunscreen and making sure that the sunscreen that you're using is effective.
Yeah, so sunscreen is an important way to prevent sunburns, and we know that even a single sunburn increases a person's lifetime risk of skin cancer. And so even in young kids, before even applying some sunscreen, there are other things to be doing, whether it's wide-brimmed hats or shaded areas. Important to keep direct sunlight away from infants. Their skin is much more sensitive and prone to burning. You can use some sunscreen on some exposed areas, even in the young kids. And then for the most part, there's different types of sunscreen. Probably the better ones are your barrier protection. So what's zinc oxide, titanium dioxide, or a couple of them. Though in some places you can't use the titanium dioxide because it hurts the reef. So if you're traveling in Hawaii or something like that, sometimes you're not allowed to use that. But that barrier protection you can put on any exposed skin. There is lotions and creams. The zinc oxide tends to be kind of a whitish film. So a lot of people are like, I don't really like that. But you can rub that in pretty well, and it's certainly better than getting sunburned. Older kids still using sunscreen, either the barrier like that. There's different chemical sunscreens that can be used. There's some concern, and a lot of the sunscreens now don't contain certain chemicals that can be hormone disruptors, and so we try and avoid those. I think the industry has kind of realized that was the case and have removed a lot of that. So you'll see a lot of them saying it's free of those chemicals. That application, I would use 15 SPF to 30 SPF. Anything 50 and above, you're probably not getting any more benefit from. So, but the bigger issue is probably reapplication. So every couple hours, reapplying. You want sunscreen that says water resistant. It probably won't say waterproof. If it does, they're kind of getting a little bit ahead of themselves because nothing is truly waterproof. So that water resistant will at least help that stay on when kids are summertime in the pool and water and things like that. But reapplying it every couple hours is a good idea. And then it can all be washed off later when you're done playing.
Great, thank you so much. To swing back to Captain Spanny for a second, I just wanted to give you a chance to talk about hoses for water and soaking fireworks afterwards. If you could just briefly.
Sure. So moving away from the injury aspect of it and looking more of the fire safety portion, we want to make sure that whenever we use fireworks, we're trying to be as safe as possible and limit the potential to start a fire, unintentional fire. When we're using fireworks, we want to be at least 15 feet away from anything that's flammable, whether that be dry grass, shrubs, cars, buildings of any kind. When they are lit, we're making sure that we have a designated adult doing that, that's responsible, someone that hasn't been drinking and can realize when there is danger. Keeping kids back at least 10 to 15 feet lets them enjoy the show while keeping them in a safe situation. Having a hose nearby or at a minimum a bucket of water that can be used to try and put out a small fire. And anytime there is a fire that's lit, best practice would be to call 911 immediately. And as I mentioned before, we can cancel if need be, if the fire's put out before we get there. But starting us early is very beneficial. And then once those fireworks have been lit and you're done for the evening, don't throw them in the trash can immediately. They need to be soaked in a bucket of water for at least 24 hours. That way it keeps any hidden embers that are inside the containers from sparking the trash can. That's something that we'll see every year is the morning after or even before the sun comes up, someone's trash can's on fire. And it's something that's common where they'll be against someone's house and then the house catches fire.
I'd imagine a lot of people don't think of that. Thank you so much for adding that perspective. Back to you, Dr. Bauman. What's the importance of wearing sunglasses?
Yeah, so your UV light doesn't just affect your skin, right? It can affect your eyes as well. So sunglasses are an important way of kind of protecting your eyes from the sun, and that can start when you're young. Well, as kids will kind of keep those on for a period of time.
And Nurse Bryant, do you have anything to add to that?
I don't. No, I don't.
Okay, that's great. I think we talked a little bit about the importance of prevention for heat stroke, and hydration was slightly mentioned, but I'm hoping, Nurse Bryant, if you could talk to us a little bit about the importance of hydration.
Yeah, I think Dr. Bauman did a great job of talking to the caregivers that water is your number one thing that you want to be providing to your children. There are so many things out there, such as soda and Gatorade, and all of them are very, very high sugar content. And while some people are getting dehydrated and some of those electrolytes are important, I think a lot of kids are consuming those when they're not really needing the hydration. It's just the sugar that they're seeking in those moments. And even things like fruit juice, which we think is very healthy because it's fruit, but if you actually look on there, it's a little dash of fruit, and that's a whole bunch of sugar, which is not good for them, and that's not what they're needing. They really do just need the water.
Thank you. Dr. Bauman, can you talk to us a little bit about bug repellent and what you see in terms of kids getting bit up this time of year?
Yeah, so when mosquitoes come out, then they're rampant. They come out in the heat, usually in the evening times at dusk. And there's bodies of water around. I mean, that's an important way for just people to be mindful of mosquito prevention in general, is not to leave small pots of standing water around. That's where mosquitoes like to breed, and then you can have a whole bunch of them swarming around. And then if you're out in the woods, we don't have a ton, but there are ticks and things like that. So there's other insects that are biting like that. So that the insect repellents that we use can help protect against both of those. Typically, the most common insect repellent contains DEET, which sometimes gets a bad name, but it has a long track record of preventing mosquito bites. It can be 10%, 20%, 30%. The higher the percent, the longer it kind of lasts. But you probably, kind of like the sunscreen, you're not going to get much more benefit after you reach a certain point, probably the 30%. So you want to, if you're only going to be out for a couple hours, you probably want to use a lower dose, something with DEET. And then that is applied just to kind of exposed skin, and it can be exposed to the clothing as well. Unlike sunscreen, you don't want to reapply DEET over and over again. And so you may find some products that are combination sunscreens and insect repellent. I would advise against using those, because a sunscreen you need to reapply, and you don't want the reapplication of your insect repellent. You don't want to put the insect repellent on the body and then cover it with clothes. We don't want that much being exposed. So, but you can put it on the outside of the clothes and on the exposed layers, exposed skin. And then after you're done, we wash it off because it is a chemical. So, and then the clothes should be laundered. You don't want to just stick them to the side and then rewear them the next day. So that's important as well. There are other insect repellents. Picardians is another option to use. It's probably smells better. DEET kind of stinks when you put it on a little bit. Picardian should be just as good. And then there's some other options that are out there. There's like oil of eucalyptus that's sometimes helpful. And then there's a lot of things that are unproven that are used. So we usually stick with those three previous ones.
Thank you. I wanted to bring this to Captain Spanny. I know that we talked about bicycle safety, and then we talked about wearing a helmet. But what about pedestrian safety? Kids run around, in the front yard or into the street playing ball. What are some of the thoughts that you have about some safety things to consider around that?
A couple things to consider with pedestrian safety, especially in your neighborhood with your kids. Reinforce with them that they aren't supposed to be playing in the street. If they are in the street, and make sure that it's a safe area, that they're supervised. Definitely recommend, if you're in your neighborhood, if you have the cones or the markers that you can put out in the street that say children at play, that's something that's beneficial to the pedestrians and the vehicle operators. You can also try and take your kids to a local park instead of being out in the street. Usually at schools, there's parking lots after hours that can be used if they're looking to do an activity out on the blacktop or the pavement. And that's a couple of ways that you can minimize the potential of a child versus a vehicle accident.
And Nurse Brian, if you could give us a little bit more follow-up on that.
Yeah, I think those are all amazing tips. Those are really good ideas. And just to add on to what Captain said is that reminding children that we are walking just the rules of the road. You're walking against traffic on the sidewalk. And if there isn't a sidewalk, on the very far shoulder. So for example, if cars are driving on the, right-hand side of the road, they're walking on the left. They're walking towards traffic all the time. And so they're on the very far side of the sidewalk, or if there's no sidewalk, on the side of the road. So they're always looking at the vehicles coming to them. So they should be paying attention. If there's an issue, they can jump out of the way. So that's the rules of the road when it comes to pedestrians. The other thing is, bless our children, but they are like zombies with their devices. So the rules are, when you're walking, definitely be walking on the sidewalk if you can, but we have a little slogan, heads up, phones down. So when you're walking around where there's traffic, put your device down. Be aware of your surroundings. Be aware of cars honking. Be aware of cars being distracted. Emergency vehicles flying by to go save people. So put those phones down, especially when you're going to cross the street. So heads up, phones down, put it away. You're going to look left, you're going to look right, and then you're going to look left again. And I always tell the kids, like, wave at the drivers, because when they're stopped at the stoplight, if they're paying attention, you're going to make eye contact, and they'll probably be like, okay, go ahead. But if you don't see those eyeballs and you don't see them looking at you, they may be talking to their children in the back. They might be passing something to somebody. We know people shouldn't be on their devices in the car, but we know that they are. They might be reaching over for their soda or for their coffee, not paying attention at all, or distracted in adult thought or teenage thought if they're driving. So make eye contact with those drivers. I always tell the kids, you're not going to win against a car. They're much bigger. They're like 2,000 to 4,000 pounds. You're not going to win. So we're going to stay out of their way. Make eye contact when they say, yeah, go. You're going to go, and be aware of your surroundings. The other things that kids are loving to do is they love their AirPods. So please, please, please take at least one of them out so that you can hear what is going on and you can be aware of what's going on in your surroundings.
Thank you. That's so helpful. That actually kind of bleeds into my next one, which is for Captain Spanny. So there was an average about 17 fatal car crashes per year over the last 5 years in Modesto. What are some practical steps that parents of teens can take to make sure that their kids are driving safe?
The immediate one that pops to mind is what Rita just talked about, making sure that we're not wearing our tech in our ears when we're driving, making sure that we're not playing with our cell phones, texting, even at stoplights, paying attention to what's going around us at all times. Wearing our seatbelts is one of the biggest, easiest things that we could do as occupants inside the car. They will make sure you don't move around in that cab of the vehicle. If there is an accident, you're nice and stable. The airbags will work better if you're seat belted in, because you're going to be in the position that you're supposed to be in. That's the biggest thing for us, is making sure that you have your seat belts on and you're paying attention to what's going on around you.
Thank you. And Dr. Baumann, do you have anything that you would like to add to either of those topics, either the pedestrian or the driving? Oh, you're muted.
Excuse me, sorry. I would just echo what they were saying because of distractions is probably the biggest culprit for a lot of these issues. So I like the thumbs down, heads up. That's good. And some of the devices now, I mean, you can have them set so that when the car is in motion, that you can't even get a text come through. So because everybody knows when they hear that ding, your eyes go to where that's coming from, and it only takes a moment to lose control.
And Nurse Bryant, I hear that cars are your jam. Would you like to talk to us a little bit about car safety?
Yeah. Yeah. So that is one of my biggest specialties when it comes to trauma prevention, both at Doctors Medical Center and also with Safe Kids Stanislaus. And there's a really great slogan that came from Impact Teen Drivers, and it's car seats to car keys when it comes to our kids. So as caregivers in our county, I'm a car seat instructor. So I help run the entire car seat program around Stanislaus County. We have free inspection stations all the way around. We do car seat events regularly. So if you follow us on our social media page, Safe Kids Stanislaus, you'll find out when those are. We also have donations. They're provided for families who qualify for new car seats or booster seats. And even for expectant parents who meet those qualifications income-wise. So the first thing is make sure that your kids are in the appropriate child restraint, whether that is rear-facing, which is 2 years and younger by law, but we will recommend that you keep them rear-facing as long as possible to protect their head and the neck in a car crash. The other thing is that know when you can transition them forward-facing, make sure that that's harnessed properly. When do we transition into a booster seat, and when are they old enough, which in California, the law is 8 years old, that they can be in just a seatbelt. But the caveat is that even though they're 8 years old, if they're not about 4'9", which is really tall, and pass the seatbelt test, which is lap and shoulder across the chest, the shoulder belt across the chest, the lap belt actually on the lap, upper legs, and the pelvis, not on the tummy, and that their feet touch the ground, 90-degree angle, bottom all the way back, and they can sit like that for the entire car ride, then they're not ready for a seatbelt. And so many kids are 12 years old before they're able to get out of their booster seat and fit the seatbelt properly. So that's a really important thing to remember when we're talking about getting our kids in the car safely. The other aspect of it is that children then, from the time they get into a seatbelt, they're watching how you're driving at all times. So it's really important that we are being good mentors to them. And so the men already talked about this, about being a good driver, where you're wearing your seatbelt at the time, where you're not being distracted, you're not being on your devices, that you're mentally prepared, that you're not too tired to drive. So those things are all really important because your kids are watching you. The slogan is, the kids may not do what you tell them to do, but they are watching you at all times. So you got to be a really good mentor to them, because next thing you know that they're driving. And we are going into, from Memorial Day to Labor Day is the 100th deadliest days of summer. And that is because we have our teenagers out there because they're not in school, they're out and about. So remember, as caregivers and parents, that if your kids are driving, to follow the graduated driver's licensing program. The first year that they're driving, they're not allowed teens. They're not allowed to drive from 11 at night till 5 in the morning. They can't use electronic devices all the way till they're 18. Know what those laws are, and the laws are there to protect the kids and protect the people that are on the roadways. Also, making sure your kids, if they're 14, 15, 16 even, asking their driver, are you allowed to drive me? Have you graduated from your graduated driver's licensing program? Are you allowed to go in there? And then just really reinforcing that driving is a privilege, it's not a right. So if they are not responsible enough to follow the speed limits, follow the road signs, follow what the laws are, make good choices. Luckily with our teenagers, only 25% are dying because of driving under the influence, which is amazing. We're doing a great job of teaching them, don't drink and drive, don't drink and drive. But we're not getting the message to 75% of the teenagers that being distracted and being reckless is the #1 killer of our teens. We lose 3,000 teens every single year across America because of car crashes that are 100% preventable based on all of those things that we were just talking about. So car seats to car keys, it's a big responsibility for caregivers. And I don't know, my slogan is, we're not there to be their friend. We're there to be their mentors and to grow amazing humans. And we can be friends later. We can be friendly, but for now, we're there to keep them alive and keep them safe and for them to be amazing, amazing humans when they're adults.
Incredible. Thank you so much for that very thorough review. I appreciate you talking from car seats to keys. I think that that's a great way to think of it. I wanted to give us an opportunity to talk about things that I wasn't able to go over that you feel very passionately about. And we want to make sure that we're giving time for each of you to essentially get on your soapbox and tell us what you think is most important for us to know. I'll start with you, Captain Spanny.
One of the most important things that we haven't touched on, we've been focusing on injury prevention and keeping our kids safe during the summertime. One of my programs I have with the Modesto Fire Department is our smoke detector program. We have a partnership with the American Red Cross and local businesses where we have free smoke detectors that we're able to give out and install to those that are in need. More than half the fire fatalities that you'll see in house fires are due to houses not having smoke detectors, not having that early warning to be able to evacuate everybody from the house in the case of a fire. If that's something that anybody out here is interested in, you can call our administration at 572-9590 and get that process started. All you have to do is give us your name, address, and phone number, and we'll send firefighters out to come install those. We've talked about a lot of beneficial things in terms of children's safety, and I appreciate you having us all here, and hope to do it again next year.
Thank you so much. And I'll move on to Dr. Bauman.
Yeah, I think a lot of good information that's shared. It makes it sound like, oh, there's the dangers of pools and the dangers of fireworks and the dangers of the sun, and we're just saying all dangers of driving. But I think it's still important that we encourage, say, hey, get outside and enjoy the sun, enjoy the water, enjoy the fun. My big thing, I think, that I see a lot of times is kids are just parked in front of a screen for hours at a time. And now that school's out and they're not having to do that, there's a potential to just kind of get on that and not interact and not be outside. So hopefully we've shared some things to help people be safe when they're out there, but it's important to get out there.
Thank you. And Nurse Bryant, to close us out.
Gosh, I feel like Dr. Bauman should have closed us out, because the only other thing that I have to add other than this is to get trained in first aid. So should there be an emergency, that you can be providing care before first responders get there. And a really big component of that, which we're a big advocate and we do a lot of classes, and we're happy to come out for free and teach any groups of people how to do this, is stop the bleed. And so that's teaching to some really basic bleeding control methods, such as how to put pressure on a wound that is bleeding, how to pack it if it's really, really deep and terrible, how to pack it to stop that bleeding, and then how to apply a tourniquet. Because the number one cause of death after injury is bleeding. And with a major loss of blood, such as a child that was climbing on the monkey bars at the park and they fall off and have an open fracture of their arm and hit a brachial artery, that the water should, the blood's just coming out like water, or a broken leg because of a sports injury that they're doing. Those minutes are really important. Our EMS tries to get to us within 7 to 8 minutes within Stanislaus County, but with major bleeding, people bleed out in less than 5 minutes, which means first responders are extremely crucial. And the skills are not difficult. They're very easy to teach. We, again, provide those free classes. So you can contact us at Doctors Medical Center to provide that. We would be happy to do that, because, yeah, I echo that yes, gosh, get those children out there, do all the fun things that they have in life, but prevent the injuries, because they don't need to happen, right? They're not accidents. They're not, right? They're preventable. We can do something about those to make sure that they don't happen, so that these kids can live amazing long lives. And then be prepared. So if something does happen in water, you know how to do CPR. If something does happen on the playground where there's bleeding, you know how to do bleeding control, and we can make sure that the injury is a whole lot less, or we can sustain their life until EMS can get there and provide the specialized care that they do. So I really appreciate you guys putting on this and providing this information to our community. Grateful for that.
Thank you all so much. This has been incredibly informative, and I hope that people take a lot away from this. It was very chock full of information, and to thank you, Dr. Bauman, too, for reminding us also that it is not just about the worst case scenario. It is also very important that kids have fun and enjoy the summer. It's going to be a hot one, as we're fully aware. So it's good to know that there are some good practical steps that folks can take to make sure that their kids are safe and that they can have fun, knowing that they have some things in place if things go wrong. Thank you all for your time.